Hello everyone, thank you for joining me here on another episode of Vegan Police TV. This episode I'm sharing my thoughts on why I believe that passionate vegans should become political lobbyists rather than political activists, or trying to claim that political parties will be the great saviour of the animals. So, without further ado, let's get on with it. Now, I've seen in a previous post my thoughts on the Animal Justice Party, how I believe that they are deliberately misleading potential supporters and even their current supporters and members by not only by the fact of what the name of the organisation is, and also about what they can and cannot do. Now, with that being said, I do believe that vegans should become more politically active. I also believe that vegans should become more aware of how the political system works and what they can and cannot achieve. So, with regards to that, in the current system, I do not believe that being a political activist, either voting for the Greens or voting for the Animal Justice Party or one of the other micro parties and things like that, is the best thing that they can do for the animals. Now, my thoughts are that it's probably you'd have a far greater impact on the animals and changing people's attitudes towards veganism and towards the use, of animals and things like that, if they became political lobbyists. Now, what a lobbyist does, primarily in Australia, I'm not sure how it runs overseas because I'm familiar with the Australian system, is that it's more about you're meeting with the politician. So you wouldn't meet with every politician, you just meet with a couple of key ones, whether it's the Minister for Agriculture, who at the federal level, I believe it's still Barnaby Joyce, not sure, is it Bill Byrne in Queensland, and things like. Okay, so the idea is, you'd find an issue that you could take them. Okay, using the dairy one for example, that dairy farmers are crying poor because of their own industry. The industry wanted deregulation, so it got deregulated. So then that was supposedly better for the consumer, which would lead to greater flexibility with prices, and all in turn is that as soon as the government says that, hey, yes, we're going to deregulate an industry to make it better for the consumer, then you know that the consumer is going to miss out, and there's going to be someone paying for something somewhere. So, pardon me. On a bit of a side note, it's happened in banking when Keating deregulated the banking industry. It happened with the Australian dollar when I think it was Hawke floated the Australian dollar. It happened in Queensland with the dairy industry when Beattie deregulated the dairy industry in Queensland and allowed milk to come in from other states. It has happened in what was it? There's power. Power's another one. Have a look at power prices. That's been deregulated and under market control. So the prices are just going through the roof on that one. Every time a politician says, "Hey, this is going to be good for the consumer. This is going to be good for this," that there's something going on, and that's the other thing too. Postal services. It's happening with Australia Post. As soon as they started reducing the market control that Australia Post has, it's forced, allegedly making it better for the consumer. Well, now it's not, because more and more people are obviously using, email and things like that. Traditional snail mail isn't as efficient, even though I think it is more effective. Isn't as efficient as what emails and things like that are. Even video calls and Skype calls and all that sort of stuff nowadays. So anyway, I digress on that one a bit. So going back to political lobbying, why I think that they should be more lobbying. Okay, using the ban for greyhound racing that's happened in New South Wales. Now, the Animal Justice Party like to believe that they had some input with that. Whether they did or they didn't, it's all happened behind closed doors. So that's lobbying. So let's say, for example, you want to, going back to the dairy farmers thing, Nick Xenophon's turning around and talking about bringing dairy into schools. So the idea would be to turn around and say, yep, all right, that's fine. We'll bring dairy into schools. We also want to, and get a group of people. So you find groups that have similar interests. So that would be the mushroom growers. That would be the tropical fruits or things like that, and saying, going to the relevant education minister and saying, hey, this is how we want to do with things. This is what we, can we get fresh fruit and vegetables brought into school? Something that I've done in the past that I was getting some traction in before there was a change of government, and I just sort of lost interest in it, is that I was making headways with the Queensland Corrections about having a plant-based or vegan meal as a standard menu option for prisoners that were incarcerated in Queensland. Now, I believe at the time, or as still is at the moment, is that if you want to request a vegan meal, and this is only in the prisons because the wash houses and lockups are run by the police, Queensland Police Department, Police Service, Police Force, whatever it is now. I keep losing thought they changed their little, are they a service, are they force? I think it's Queensland Police Service, so they keep changing what that they are all the time. So this is only to deal with corrections. Now, the idea was that, hey, if you make it more accepted, you can get past the gatekeepers in corrections, because they are pretty much the biggest provider, a government provider of meals in the state. And then it's easier to get that foot into somewhere else. So how I was getting some traction and some leeway in with that after meeting with the advisors and communication with the advisors, was that the idea was, as it stands at the moment, if you want to request a vegan suitable meal or a plant-based meal, then you have to seek permission from the CEO of the prison, who in turn contacts the government dietitian, who in turn comes back to the individual to make an assessment, and a whole lot of basically bureaucracy. It's not like you can turn around and say, yep, you tick a meal plan, say that's that. And at that time, my challenge was that, hey, yes, it is a legitimate view, it's a legitimate political belief. So why is it that if you want a halal meal or want kosher meal in prisons and things like that, there was facilities to, without going through the rigmarole on that one. Was getting some leeway with that. Then there was a change of government, and with change of governments, everything gets wiped out, and a new minister comes in and has different views on things like that. And I think that was at the Bligh time that I was making comments, having discussions with corrections. That was when Newman came in. I haven't worried about it since then, because I've got other things to do. There's only so much that I can do in a day. So that is, and the idea with that, as I was saying, was that if you can get in corrections and make it that, hey, a vegan meal is acceptable in prisons and corrections, then it's easier to get into the education department and to use that as the same way. Then, or it's easier to use corrections and then go to the police for the meals that they provide, and then use that as a way to get into education. Because if you come right out the bat and say, hey, we want vegan meals in in schools, then most tuck shops are run by the PNCs, so it's going to be a bit of a challenge there. There's depends on whether you want state schools or want private schools, and there's a private state school thing or a privately managed state school. It's just all completely different stuff. So it depends on how you go through it. So, and that's the idea with lobbying, is that you go and find some things, you just continually chip away. You don't go in and say with that. Lobbying is more effective because it gets you a greater input. With politics, if you want a political change done, let's say, for example, using this legislation in New South Wales that's going through to ban greyhound racing, who's to say if, is it the Labor government that's doing it or the Liberal government? Anyway, whatever government it is in New South Wales, honestly, I mean, I'm Queensland based, so I'm really not that concerned about what happens in other states. The only stuff that I'm concerned about is Queensland politics and federal politics. So, okay, let's say, government A is the one that's pushing it through New South Wales at the moment. There's an election in 2 years' time or 3 years' time, however long it is. Okay, let's say there's an election in 2 years' time. The the opposition political party B will be using that as their platform for the next 2 years, saying, hey, yes, we're going to reinstate greyhound racing. We're going to give greater protection to greyhound racing. So all it takes is a change of government and that legislation's gone, and then greyhound racing's back in, back to being banned. Back to being legally protected. Now, this is the other thing too, is that all gambling on animal races is banned. It's not legal in anywhere in any states in Australia. What there is legal exceptions. So there's a legal exception for horse racing, and that's a trots and steeples and all that sort of stuff. There's a legal exception for greyhound racing. You can't go and bet on a cockfight. You can't go and bet on, gamble on, if you want to wage money, 2 mice running through a maze. You can't gamble on that because that's not a protected thing. You can't gamble on, Shetland pony races, or you can't gamble. And so that's the thing, is that as much as people are saying, hey, we're going to ban it, what they're doing is they're removing the legal protection from it. So once the legal protection is gone, then there's no legal excuse or justifiable reason that people are going greyhound racing and gambling on that. So that's I know that's probably semantics to some, though it is an important thing to remember when you're talking about politics. So the idea, something in Tasmania a while ago about Tasmania was going to go cage free and all that sort of stuff by year dot whatever it was, and then the government decided to change their mind and watered down the legislation, and things changed. The Greens did it in the ACT. The ACT went cage free and no intensive pig farms and all that, passed legislation. And then that was promoted as, hey, yes, the ACT is the first state or territory to do that. The thing is, though, in the ACT, Pace Farms were the only ones that were intensive egg production. There were no piggeries in the ACT. So by essence, they were legislating against a practice that didn't actually exist. So, and the other thing too is that when you have a look at the legislation, there was huge government handouts given to Pace Farms to transition to a more cage-free or enriched cages, or I don't know, whatever they used, or larger cages to comply with the legislation. So this is the thing. Politics it's a game of semantics. It's a game of little, this and that, and commas and apostrophes and core promises and all that sort of, guffaffle. You're better off doing all the stuff behind the scenes and lobbying the politicians and lobbying the members and, getting one politician to turn up. It doesn't, to become, don't aim for the sitting government. Don't aim for the sitting members to become, a friend of the animals. Go to the opposition. Do the opposition first, because they're normally they're an easier, mountain to climb, because they're not really answering to anyone. There's not really anything that they have any power doing. It's more about if you can get the opposition on side. So, for example, the opposition agricultural minister or DPI minister in Queensland, you go and contact them and say, hey, listen, this is what we want to do. We want to improve the standing of, beetroot farmers or, soy farmers in Queensland. So this is what we're proposing. We want to do this. So then, you can invite the minister along to some sort of soy-based whatever, or some soy product thing or something like that. So you give the opposition something to do first, then you have discussions with them and build up their exposure, so then they can get votes on that side, because they'll push that particular message. And the iPad is starting to have a bit of a sun glare on the roof. So that's the thing. We need to lobby. We don't need to say, hey, yes, we'll go and vote for the AJP because the AJP will do something. Well, politics is only a short-term game nowadays. It's not a long-term game where, back in the olden days, people would do things for the greater good of the country and the nation and the state. Now all they're doing is they're doing something for the greater good of that news cycle. So whether it's we're on a 24-hour news cycle now, so they're doing something to maintain positive news then, and then they'll put out BS press releases, media releases, ministerial statements and things like that, and then they're just looking about their term. They're looking about what they can lead up to promising to doing in this term, and then they'll continue it if they get voted in. Peter Beattie was the best one for that. He was media distraction. He promised enhanced powers for transit officers. For years that was an election platform for 2 elections, I think it was, and then it was going to come in. Ended up coming in the Bligh government, and that was a half-baked mishmash load of whatever, because they were reactionary. Instead of putting all the groundwork in the lead up to it, and it was an election promise, so they really didn't care about it. And then when pushes come to shove, then they've had to go, oh shit, we need to get this stuff done. So it's been half-baked and not really well thought out, the legislation governing transit officers. The senior network officers now, that's what they're known as, but under legislation they're transit officers, authorised persons or something like that. So anyway, that's an aside thing. So political lobbying, that's the way to do it. This is the thing. I am passionate about politics. I do love politics. I can talk for hours on it. It is something that really is interesting to me. I don't agree that we should be slandering and slamming Barnaby Joyce as the Minister for Cruelty and the Minister for this. Well, that's only one part of his portfolio. Why not promote him as the Minister for Pineapples, or the Minister for soybeans, or the Minister for chickpeas, and say, hey, listen, Barnaby, this is how you can help this, because, push it to him and say, hey, listen, these combined, industries, or these combined part of agricultural things have a greater GDP export value, or even GDP consumption value, the gross domestic product, locally or even internationally, than what animal agriculture is. So then you get them on side that way. So you lobby them. You don't just go head into them, because the animal ag industry is very, very powerful, and this is why there's more stuff going on for animal ag, because and that's the thing with dairy and animal ag, they're both the same. They're both very, very powerful, because they have a lot of money that they control. They can add a levy to the sale of product XYZ to in turn increase their funding and whatever else, and then they also get sort of government, not direct, more of indirect government assistance and things like that. So can you imagine chickpea farmers turning and saying, hey, the Chickpea Association says, all right, we're going to increase it, we're going to charge a $2 a levy, $2 a tonne levy on chickpeas produced or olives produced or something like that. Consumers would go nuts about it, whereas the price of meat can go up all the time, and consumers will say, yep, and that's the other thing too, is that they rebrand themselves to make the added expense more acceptable. So they're using the Meat Standards Australia, the MSA gradings and things like that. So they're rebranding that way and saying, hey, yes, you're paying a premium for a quality product. So this, obviously you're paying more, and then the producer has to, hand out their money to the relevant industry association. So this is the thing. I mean, there's just so much that I can go about it. I'm being mindful of the time now. I'm getting up to 19 minutes. There's just so much I want to talk about. Let me know in the comment section what particular bit of lobbying, how to approach the ministers, or things like that. That you'd like to know about, and I'll happily do a YouTube clip about that, and do some advice sessions on how to become an effective. I don't really like that term, but how to become an efficient political lobbyist. So anyway, that was my rant on politics again for today. So thank you for watching. My name's Cameron Blue. This was Vegan Police TV, and remember, don't fear the vegan police. We're here to help. Bye for now.